a sense, they've hardly evolved at all. The basic structure of an operating system based on a sort of classical Unix model is really the same as it was arguably 50 years ago, with a few sort of changes. What's really changed, both in academia and in industry, is there's been, in the last 10, 15 years, there's been an increasing emphasis on formal verification. Operating systems people traditionally avoided formal verification. They didn't think it was practical. They didn't think it delivered anything useful. That's completely changed. It's now, if you talk about a new design for an operating system, if you don't talk about how it might be verified, if you don't talk about a specification of its correctness in some form, even if that's slightly informal, you lose a lot of credibility. And that's a real change in attitude, and I think it's a good thing. Operating systems are really hard, and they're hard for, I guess, two related reasons. One of which is all the nice things that programmers like to use, all the nice abstractions, like threads and memory protection and memory management, all that kind of good stuff. It's the job of the operating system to give you that. So if you're writing the operating system, you don't have that. You have to build it yourself, and that makes operating systems inherently hard. And also providing those abstractions forces you to confront a whole load of ugly things about reality that the operating system hides from other programmers. And so things happen unexpectedly, things happen simultaneously. There is concurrency, there is asynchrony. There is the sheer complexity of the underlying hardware that you never see if you're just writing your Python or your R scripts up in user space. But down in the operating system, you see it all and you have to deal with the whole thing. That's also what makes it a lot of fun. And it's also why I kind of love it. But writing operating systems is fundamentally different from other kinds of programming. You really are, kind of on your own. In an operating system, the overriding goal is it's got to work. It's got to be correct. It's one of the reasons there's a lot of interest in formal methods is that you can actually verify that subject to certain conditions, it is going to do what you expect. And the problem with AI is you get no guarantees like that at all. You get very little faith that anything's going to work. So in the functioning of an operating system, I cannot see AI per se ever really being involved in it in a way that would give any degrees of assurance that the system's going to work. That said, their operating systems have to make a number of policy decisions all the time. And that's often independent of the mechanism, which jobs to run when, how to manage power over a long term. That kind of thing, you can imagine that machine learning approaches, I probably won't call it AI per se, but machine learning approaches, particularly things that work on very well-specified problems like reinforcement learning, that has a role to play, I think, in looking at formulating better OS policies and better OS heuristics. And there are people, looking at that right now. And I think that's sort of where the role ends up being. But AI in general, I think operating systems are probably not going to rely on that. I think formal methods are a much bigger bet for getting an operating system right at this point. People will look back on the last 10, 20 years, probably just the last 10 years. And, some of my colleagues say this, that computer science has had its Manhattan Project moment, right? Where suddenly it's not academic anymore. And that's changed. Somehow computer science and the products of computer science, particularly when you start looking at big social networks, artificial intelligence systems, suddenly has become deeply, deeply political. And we're not used to that in computer science, and we got very used to telling ourselves that, no, we're just building stuff. I don't think we have that luxury anymore. And so what I'd like to see is not a particular change in the technology necessarily, but I would like to think about computer systems, and I like to try to think about computer systems as embedded in the kind of networks of power that you see in societies. Right? And people think about this in terms of some other technologies. Computer scientists have typically not thought about how what they do is embedded in power relations. And I think we'd better start, because otherwise, it's going to lead to problems. But that's also an interesting question. It's a very interesting thing to think about.